It's 2011 and a grueling 48-hour race is underway. An ultra-distance runner from New York is determined to beat the current record by running the equivalent of 9 marathons. He only needs 4 5 to 10-minute breaks over the 2 days. Lying on the ground for just a minute will give his aching feet a rest and a chance for his overactive brain to shut down. But he cannot afford to fall asleep because there's no support crew to wake him up. This will be the ultimate test of self-control if he wants to carry on and win.
I knew I couldn't go back.
Changes your
You just
life.
put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the BUCKiT podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
When I was a kid, I would run home, 2 blocks. That was a big accomplishment for a 6-year-old kid. So now it's like the there to here is San Francisco to New York.
Phil McCarthy's racing resume is mind-blowing. It's exhausting just reading about what he's achieved as an elite endurance athlete. Since 1997, Phil McCarthy has raced dozens of marathons and ultras, including racing 135 miles in the Badwater Ultramarathon in California's Death Valley. Not just once, but 3 times. It's a race described as the world's toughest foot race, a race of near-mythical status in the world of extreme running. And as grueling as that might sound, it's nothing compared to a monumental challenge Phil finished only 3 weeks ago. Running, yes, I said running, coast to coast across America. All right, I am with Phil McCarthy. It is November in New York City.
Yeah.
A man who has just returned from the biggest physical and mental challenge of his life. A record time, is that correct?
It is a record for anybody over the age of 40
To run across America.
in 49 days, 7 hours, and 55 minutes.
Do you know how many seconds?
Oh, I didn't count the seconds.
And how are you holding up? How are you feeling? Because how long has it been now since you got back?
It's been about it was October, and it's been about 3.5 weeks. And for most of the day-to-day activities, I'm fine. Running is still a little bit of a challenge. I'm running short distances just to kind of keep my legs moving a little bit, blood circulating to see how I'm doing. But for the most part, recovery's been going well.
And how long do you think it will take before you're back to your normal self, whatever that is? Not that I would call you normal, but
no, right?
yeah,
well,
when you feel like you're recovered. Okay, I'm recovered.
I don't know. I think it's individual for a lot of different people. I have friends who have done this, and they say it may take 6 months until you really feel back to normal. It could be something like that. I may never recover fully, to the point where I'm able to run at the speed, at the intensity that I used to, but I'm fine with that. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not planning anything. I have a race scheduled for next spring, but I'm not planning anything really major up until then.
We're going to talk about your run across America in a bit, but I wanted to start up with a quote here that you have. You said, "It's funny how our brains know things, but at the same time, the brain ignores these facts." What did you mean when you said that?
When you're undertaking a project like this, you have to ignore certain facts. You have to ignore certain pain. You have to ignore the immensity of what you're undertaking. And you have to focus on what's important, which is, in something like this, the moment to moment, the daily, the mundane, just getting from one point to another point. So if your foot is hurting, if your quads are killing you, you have to, your brain can ignore that. And that's just something that you overcome in order to say, I have to get to that next tree over there.
And sometimes you're literally, when you're doing the ultra runs that you do, you are really just thinking about, I just got to get to the tree, I just got to get to the top of that hill, I just have to get to that small town.
Right. Yeah. Depending on the situation, that goal may be 100 yards away from you. It may be 10 miles away from you.
They say it takes a special type of person to put themselves through ultra marathons, through ultra. How do you describe yourself? Phil? Like, what are you as an athlete?
All I can say is, when I started running, I thought I'll run a couple of marathons. That'll be done. I'll be happy with that. But then I just got interested in going farther and farther. And there's something in my brain that just said, I want to go farther and farther.
Phil, I was wondering if you could take us back to a 48-hour race that you did in Suffolk. I believe it was your third 48-hour race. Things are going pretty well for you. And then, as all ultra races do, there is a challenge that you face.
Well, yes. So this was back in May of 2011. And I was running this race with the express purpose and express goal of breaking the American record, which was 248-something miles, held by my good friend John Giesler.
Could you I just stop you there for a second.
Okay,
248 miles in 24 hours.
In 48.
48 hours,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. 200 plus miles in 48 hours.
Yes. Which
Just trying to wrap my head around that.
Okay.
We're talking about 9 or 10 marathons, roughly.
Okay. I just run it. I don't even.
It's a lot.
I don't worry about the math too much.
Okay.
The race is going along very well. This is 3 days at the fair in New Jersey. And just so people who aren't aware of these kind of races, it's a fixed time race. So it's a short loop. It's about a mile loop, and you run around as many times as you can in the allotted time. And whoever runs the most miles wins, or gets the record if it's a record. So I was trying to beat 248 miles, and I had my plan. I had everything set up, and I was there by myself. I had a friend help me get set up, but I was basically doing the race on my own. I had a couple of people helping out here and there. And I knew that I had to keep on pace. I couldn't really take any real break time. At a couple of points during the race, I would lay down just to get off my feet, because the feet were hurting, and sometimes you have to just lay down, close your eyes, and just shut the brain down. But I was very careful not to fall asleep, because if I fell asleep, I would very possibly not wake up until several hours later, and the record would be out the window. So, after 25 hours, 36 hours, you need to lay down. And
when you lay down, Phil, how long are you sleeping for, resting for?
I was resting for between 5 to 10 minutes. And in that period of time, you can actually get up and feel fairly refreshed. In one case, there was somebody nearby, and I asked them to wake me up in 5 minutes, but they're busy doing other things. So I just had to be sure that I kind of kept one eye open in a way. And the mind is just in such a state that I'm paranoid about anything failing, whether it's an alarm or whether it's somebody helping to wake you up. So I was laying down just flat on the ground, nothing, I think there's a tarp under me just so I'm not right on the grass. Feet slightly elevated just to get off my feet a little bit, and close my eyes. I think I had a towel over my eyes, something like that, just keep any extraneous light out, and just kind of kept a little bit of my brain open for business, just enough so I wouldn't fall asleep. So I did that 3 or 4 times during the race, and you're hearing sounds from runners running by in the middle of the night, or distance, runners in the distance far away or something like that. So you're just trying to keep a little bit of connection with the waking world while you take your little 5-10 minute rest.
Wow. Well, I'm going to finish that story about your amazing, your epic run in 48 hours. What's interesting to me when you read about your background, Phil, is that you didn't start off running long distances.
No.
In fact, you started off running very short distances, like 100 meters.
Yes. So I grew up in a relatively small town, Norfolk, Nebraska. I went to a small school, and so I was a decent sprinter for the small school that I went to. I grew up in football country. Long distances were never something that entered my mind.
Yeah.
It was only afterwards, through college, as I was growing, into adulthood.
You moved to New York at some point.
I moved to New York when I was 26 years old. I stayed with relatives on Staten Island. It just so happened that my bedroom window looked out to see the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which is where they start the New York Marathon.
Yeah.
And I thought, I have to run across that bridge. And the only way you can do that is to sign up for the marathon. So I signed up for the marathon, ran my first marathon in 97.
The great thing about the New York Marathon is it gets to run through all 5 boroughs. So you see the Staten Island Bridge. Is that what it's called?
The Verrazano Narrows Bridge.
Oh, by the way, I changed the light bulb up on top of the Verrazano Bridge once.
Oh, is that right?
I went down the cable and I unscrewed a light bulb and put a new one in there back in 1994. A little bit before you got into your marathons.
I got a little bit of fear of heights. That would freak me out a little
So you want to run across the Verrazano, or you want to go across the Verrazano, and the only way to do it, got to do the New York Marathon.
Right, there's no pedestrian walkway on there. And it's an iconic photograph. You see the thousands and thousands of runners going across the bridge. It's really an iconic photograph. And yeah, the New York Marathon is great because it goes through all the boroughs, huge crowd support, and you're never alone, and you always have people cheering for you if you're having a downtime, especially if you write your name on your shirt, I say, oh, go, Phil.
You must miss that if you're now doing these ultra marathons, after running in the New York Marathon and getting cheered on, and then you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody around.
Exactly. I love
very
all of
different.
it. I love all of it. And I'm generally a very zen runner, I internalize things.
Yeah.
And I can focus, keep things within my head, and I don't necessarily need all that external motivation. Sometimes it can actually be a little bit overwhelming for me. Like if you're in New York or Boston, and the noise sometimes becomes a little overwhelming for me personally. But I definitely feel comfortable in both situations, and I definitely feel comfortable if I'm out on a mountain trail or if I'm out on a dirt road in the middle of Nevada. Oh boy, I can handle in just about any kind of situation.
When do you realize that you're not just a fast runner, but you're a long distance runner, that you have some gift, that you have the ability to just keep on going, and may I say a little bit like Forrest Gump, because we know he did.
Right.
And the beard, Phil, by the way, was that from running across America, by the way,
as
protect your face?
As a matter of fact, it was. I had about a week's growth before I started. I knew that I was not going to be doing too much with, hygiene, and I was getting the bare minimum. Brushing my teeth, is about the best I could do. So the hair went to hell, and the beard came out, and I was very happy being a wild man. When I look at myself in the mirror, I'm thinking, that doesn't look good, but I like it.
You've still got a little wild in your eye. Right now, I can see you've still got that far away look in your eye, like you've just gone to hell and back.
Yes.
and you kind of did.
I kind of did, yeah.
So you realize that you can run long distances, and I believe your time in that first marathon was something like 3:47.
3:47, yeah.
And when you finished, you thought, I'm not really sure I can run that much faster, but I think I could keep running further than that.
Yes. I was thinking about the Boston Marathon. Boston Marathon, you have to run a fast qualifying time in order to enter. And I was thinking, that would have been like 3 hours and 10 minutes or 3 hours and...
That's the qualifying time?
For yeah. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm ever going to qualify for that. If I'm lucky, maybe I'll get, 3:30, something like that. I ran shorter races, I ran longer races, gained more experience. I dropped my marathon time. My fastest marathon to date is 2:50:55. So I got...
Oh, you did get really way down.
I got way down.
Anybody who goes under 3 hours is a phenom in my mind.
And it was just a combination of different training techniques, racing techniques, and just the joy of doing it. And it was about that same time that I started running ultras and started running the longer distances. And like I said, I still had that in my head. How far can I go until I drop was kind of the thought. And I haven't gotten to...
Why would you be interested in, let me see how far I can run before I drop? Like,
who's interested in... Why is anybody interested in anything? That was just the thing that came to my mind. Some people wanted to see how fast they can go, and to some degree I had that, but it was just something in my mind. I wanted to see how far I could go. And one of the things I really love about running, the long distance running, is the feeling of covering ground from here to there. It's not just an abstract distance. I'm running from the start line in Badwater in Death Valley to the finish line on Mount Whitney, the highest mountain in
14,000 feet, something?
Yeah, we don't go all the way to the top during the race, but when I was a kid, I run home from my friend's house, 2 blocks. I ran from there to here. That was a big accomplishment for a 6-year-old kid. And so now it's like the there to here is San Francisco to New York. That does kind of contradict the fixed time race where you're running loops for 48 hours or 6 days at a time.
I didn't realize that the 48-hour race went on a 1 mile
and sometimes
course like that.
Sometimes those are run on track even. So my first 48-hour was on a 300-meter track in France. So
really? Just going round and round?
Yeah.
I do think you have to be a certain type of individual to put your body through that.
It's like our new Nebraska state slogan, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, not for everybody. Tell us about you becoming the first American man to place in the top 10 at the 24-hour World Championship race. I think you finished fourth?
Fourth. That was something that was really a big moment for me and a real surprise. This was 2007, so I've been doing ultras for 5 years.
Yeah.
But I had only done my first 24-hour race like a year before in order to qualify, to get a qualifying race to get on the team.
Tell us about that particular race. So you end up fourth.
I was green. It was my first time on the World Championship team. I was the lowest qualifier on the team. No one was expecting anything from me. I wasn't really expecting anything from myself. I had a little bit of a goal. And it was in Drummondville, Quebec. And they started in the afternoon. It was a hot day, very humid. I started out conservatively just because that was how I was planning to start out. A lot of the front runners, like front Russian runners, some of the Japanese runners went out too fast. They eventually died out. I just kept consistent.
What kind of mile rate are you running there?
I'm averaging about 9.5 minutes per mile.
Okay.
And
so you have to be very disciplined, right?
I was very disciplined. I developed a very disciplined eating, drinking routine. A walking break. I had a disciplined walking break every lap. But as we're going along, about 18 hours into the race, one of my teammates says to me, I passed him, and I knew I was going to be the top American in the race at that point. I didn't know what my mileage was. I didn't know what my place was. I passed my teammate, and he said, "Do you know what place you're in now?" I said, "No." He said, "Fifth." I said, "Fifth." And I'm going past the timing tent, and this is in Quebec, so they're speaking French, and they're speaking French, and I hear my name, McCarthy. And I was like, why are they saying my name? Why are they talking about me? So I was fifth. I ended up in fourth place, and it was actually very, very nerve-wracking towards the end because the fifth place runner behind me was catching up very quickly, and our team was in third place for a bronze medal, but there was another team catching up to us very quickly. So I had one of our crew members just telling me, run fast. He's catching up. The guy is a minute behind you. Next lap, he's 45 seconds behind you. And by the time they sounded the buzzer, I was at a certain point in on the course, and I dropped my marker. We drop your marker to show where you finish. And I'm walking back to the start-finish area, and that runner behind me, he finished about 100 meters behind me. So I managed to hold on to fourth place by about 100 meters. But it was huge because no one expected anything from me. That put me on the map, in a way, on the national or even the international stage. And that was really the first time that I felt like, this could be something big. It seemed to validate everything that I had done, all the work that I put in up to that point, and just to know that here was something that I kind of discovered on my own, in a way, the ultras, and it was totally unexpected in my life. Like I said, I grew up, a kid, very unathletic, and all of a sudden here I'm kind of up on the world stage, and people I don't know are coming up to me, saying I'm a fan or something like this. And then
I've spoken to other runners, and they talk about you. They say that this guy has this crazy mental toughness where he can just keep on going. Going back to the story that we started about the 48-hour race, when you didn't want to fall asleep.
Right.
You're scared, right? Because you've put all this work in to be there.
Yeah.
And now you're petrified that it's all going to get blown by falling asleep.
I knew that if I kept on pace, I was going to have the record. I think that helped my mind keep focused even when I was semi-unconscious. And I got up, and it even rained on me the last 7 hours.
Oh.
And it was a pretty heavy downpour at times, too.
For 7 hours you were rained on.
7 hours we were rained on. I broke the record with about an hour and 40 minutes to spare, so I ended up with 257.34 miles. And an American record that held up until a year ago now. November 17, somebody beat that.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary.
Yeah.
What does the body feel like after punishing itself for 257 miles?
It's still functioning as if it's running to some degree.
In what way?
It's hard to say, but you're still sweating. Like you're still sweating as if you're running until the next day. And, it takes a while for the heartbeat to kind of just, resume a normal heartbeat. Circulation to return to normal. The circulation is strange because you feel like everything's like tingling. You feel kind of numb to some degree. That's actually one of the things I enjoy about the sport, because you do get to experience all these strange sensations.
What are some of the stranger sensations that you've experienced?
A lot of it has to do with, like I said, that the circulation, because when that happens, the head sometimes gets a little lightheaded. I've never had any hallucinations. I hate to disappoint people. People are always asking me, they hear stories about someone who imagines leprechauns or something like that. I've never had any of that. Sheer exhaustion. And it's strangely enough, it's very little real pain. People always talk about the pain. I don't very often feel the pain. It's just more a matter of exhaustion and just overuse.
Tell us about Badwater, because that's a badass race,
right?
It's a
badass race.
Is it the toughest ultra race in the world in your mind?
It's the toughest race that rewards you for what you put into it.
So tell us, what is Badwater?
Badwater is a 135-mile race that starts at the Badwater Point in Death Valley, California.
Lowest point in
the Western Hemisphere.
Western Hemisphere.
282 feet below sea level.
Okay.
And
hotter than hell.
It's the hottest place that's the hottest recorded temperature ever, as was recorded in Death Valley.
Perfect place to start
in the middle
a race.
of July.
Okay.
In the middle of July, and so you cross the desert, and then for 45 miles you climb 5,000 feet up a mountain, go down 3,500 feet, go up 3,500 feet another mountain, you cross the plains, and you finish 8,500 feet up in elevation on Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the lower 48 states. And so you'll get temperatures of 125 degrees or more. And so in this particular race,
it just sounds like hell.
It sounds like
if you got sent to hell, and whoever is down there, monitoring hell, the devil, I guess, and the devil said, "You've been very, very bad. I'm going to punish you. You've got to run Badwater."
And yet everybody wants to run this race. It's tough to get into.
Is it?
Yeah. And two kinds of people in this world: those who drive through Death Valley as fast as they can with the windows up and the AC blasting, and those who get out and run on the road. And so I'm definitely one of those who gets out and runs.
You got out and ran. How many times have you done Badwater?
I've done it 3 times. I finished top 10 each time. I kind of get, spoiler alert, but so the second time I ran it, I was having real bad blisters on the second climb. At the end of the second climb, about 80 miles into the race, it was just killing me, and this was real pain. I got in my crew vehicle.
Well, for you to say that you were in pain, you must have been in pain.
It was pain. And because there were blisters all over my feet, the bottom, the top, the heels, the toes. But oh my God! After
this
the race,
happened, but I'm just trying to get my head around this, because this happened with 55 miles to go.
Yeah, I was running.
So
55
you've still got 2 marathons ahead of you.
Yeah,
and you're going through
including a 5,000 foot climb to finish the race.
And blisters all over your feet.
I'll go through exhaustion. I'll go through dehydration. I'll go through hypothermia, and pushing through some of those can be difficult, but that kind of pain. So that was definitely the most pain I've probably felt in any race. And like I said, I got through the race, but as soon as I got to the finish line, I could barely walk. Oh my God, it was horrible.
Why do you think you've gravitated towards a solitary sport as opposed to playing pickup basketball with your friends? Or you must like being on your own.
That's part of my. That's always been part of my personality. I've always been kind of a shy, introverted person, and I've come I come comfortable like in my own skin. When I get into that kind of a situation, I'm in a race, and I just feel like I'm on my own, but I feel like I'm running through the world, and I'm experiencing the world just in a different way. And so it is solitary, but you're not really alone, because even if you're running through the desert in Nevada, you're experiencing the environment and the world. It is part of my personality, though. I feel comfortable in my own skin. I can internalize these things a lot, and so I think in that way it suits me, and that could be one of the reasons I've had success in the sport.
Yeah, you really have. So, talking about ultra distance running, I mentioned you've just come back from running across America.
Yeah.
Fresh off the road, 3 weeks ago or something.
3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. What motivated you to want to do that?
The ultimate here to there, in my mind, is Pacific Ocean to Atlantic Ocean.
You were inspired also by a number of record holders, some record holders who had gone across America and extraordinarily quickly. Can you give some credence to some of those runners?
Well, absolutely. For many years, the record for running cross country was held by Frank Giannino. He ran it in the 80s, in the 1980s, and it was 46 days and change. And so when I had this in my head, I'm thinking, I want to go for that record. I want to break that record for 46 days. And then 2 years ago, along comes this young guy, Pete Kostelnik. He set out to break the record. He started on his 30th birthday. Sure enough, he breaks a record by 4 days, 42 days. And I actually, I had become friends with him, on Facebook, whatever, in that meantime, and I ran with him on his last day down the length of Manhattan. And so, I mean, we're good friends to this day. But I'm thinking, I can't, that's a tough record to break. I can't not try it just because it's a much tougher record. So I still had to go for it myself.
So you head off across America on your run.
Yeah.
Big support crew? I mean, how many people are with you?
Well, I had originally intended to have 2 support vehicles and 4 full-time crew members. Like have an RV and a van, 4 full-time crew members take care of me. Well, sponsorship didn't come through, budget didn't quite come through, so it ended up being me and a buddy with his Chevy Trailblazer, pretty much. It was, I started out with 2 crew members. Dwight Dammers, he was the owner of the Trailblazer, a friend Camilo Martinez, who's also a very experienced ultra runner. Camilo was only able to stay the first 11 days before he had to get back. But Dwight was with me from beginning to end, and he was so incredible. He was the perfect person you want for this kind of job. It was definitely a team. It was not me running and him. It was definitely a very symbiotic team effort. He had such a positive attitude. He's a workhorse, and he kept me going. A lot of times I'd be sleeping and he would be doing the laundry or something like that. And, he'd be working just as hard as I was in a lot of cases.
What was the general plan, Phil, in terms of how many miles a day, what time you were aiming for?
Right. Well, in order to break the record, I would have had to run 73 miles a day. I was kind of keeping close to that for the first 5 days or so, to where point was within reach. Eventually, I had some bad days. There was a day I had a detour, and so I had some setbacks that made me realize I was not going to be getting the record. But once I got past that, and once we got into a routine, Dwight and I had this thing going, we'd be going between 60, 70 miles a day, generally. I have the average is 63 miles a day for where I did the whole
For
time.
what you did.
Yeah. And that would be usually between 14, 15 hours, maybe a little more.
Again, more than 2 marathons a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically
sometimes 3.
Sometimes 3.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's the average.
Sometimes I do.
If you
70,
felt good, you just keep going?
Yeah, if I was feeling good, definitely.
So what was the longest you ran in a day?
My longest day was 79 miles. That was actually the second to last day when I was coming into New York. I was actually intending to run all night long because I was close, and I figured I can go one night without sleep. I just want to get in and get done as quickly as I can. So it was like an 18-hour day.
What was that like to be on this huge challenge of your life and go through your hometown?
Well, it was really incredible, and my brother's wife had set up this whole thing with my old high school. So the cross-country team met me like 4 miles outside of town. They ran in the last 4 miles with me, and like my nephew came out to run with me for a little bit. My brother came out, a cousin came up. So all of a sudden I was seeing all my family. I was seeing all my school people. And then I got to my high school, and they had a little ceremony. Some of my classmates were there. And
we always knew you'd run across America.
Oh, no, man. I was such a scrawny little runt back then. Come on. So it was really nice. And so I have to give a shout out to the Norfolk Catholic Alumni Association.
Yeah, please give a shout out. Go ahead.
Yeah, Norfolk Catholic schools, the Alumni Association. They gave me a gift bag, and they all helped me out. It was so supportive. And so that all that pain just kind of disappeared. And we got into town, 4 o'clock next morning, wake up. Out we go.
Right back out again.
Right back out.
What do you say to people maybe that are looking for a little bit more in their life, that want to push themselves a little bit further than they have before?
Yeah.
That maybe are finding it hard to just go for a mile run even.
Right.
Like, what do you say to them?
Well, find out what your passion is. If your passion is to run a mile, it will happen. If your passion is to run a marathon, it will happen.
How do you find your passion, though? Some people, they say...
Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
But is it about self-discovery? Is it about spending time by yourself and maybe going for long walks to think? Or how do you find it?
I think a lot of it involves thinking, maybe going for a walk or breaking out of a routine, maybe. Just because people get into a routine, they get into a bubble, I think. And they don't realize the possibilities that are out there. And even for me, ultra running was not something that I considered. I was just, reading magazines. So I was, reading about mountain climbing. I was reading about kayaking. I was reading about cycling, snowboarding. And that's all. That was very nice. And then I read about long distance running. I thought, yeah, that's the one.
That's something that captured your imagination.
Yeah, break out of the routine a little bit, break out of the bubble a little bit. And once you find what you have, it's not easy and it takes work.
How do you survive financially? Because this is not a cheap thing to do when you take 48 days, was it?
49 days and
49 days and change.
Yeah.
When you take 49 days out of your life to run across America, how do you make that happen financially?
I'd set up a GoFundMe page, actually, which was intended just to supplement what the sponsors wouldn't cover. In the end, that was my source of funding. We did go on do it on a much smaller budget than we intended to. We had one vehicle and one person for most of the time, and we slept in the car a lot. Shopped at Walmart, found some low-cost food and so forth, and I will also say I had a huge support group, both in New York and all the friends that I have nationwide, worldwide, who did give their hard-earned money, which it's hard for me to take that. It's hard for me to know that people have given me $25, $100, or whatever of money that they worked hard for in order for me to do this that does not benefit them in any tangible way. But it really made me It kept me going. That's one thing that kept me going, because if it was just me doing this on my own, I might have quit. But knowing that I had all this support, and I'd check my Facebook whenever I could, and I'd see all the comments and go Phil.
It kept you going.
It definitely kept me going. They had as much of an ownership in it as I did myself, so I feel like it belongs to them as much as it does to me.
What do you do for a day job? Are you a coach or?
I am a coach.
I mean, where can people go if they want to be coached by one of the greatest ultra distance runners of all time?
They can go to McCarthyRunningExperience.com.
Okay.
And that is, that's.
And will you coach anybody? I mean, if
I'll coach anybody. I can do it long distance, beginning runners, or people who have never.
Do you love that?
Exercised.
Do you love to
yes.
get expose people to
because
new?
Not necessarily trying to coach people to win, the marathon, win New York Marathon. I want people to get the most out of their lives, to get the most out of their body, and I've developed a certain technique so that people can get the most out of it, make it as pain-free as possible. Try to
and set goals.
And set goals.
I know you have a real heart and care about others, and I read this quote where you said that you're American born, you're a white Christian male with a job, you got good health, good insurance, you're going to be fine, but you worry about those who are not white Christian, employed, healthy, and insured men, because everyone outside of that bubble is in danger of losing their opportunity, their money, their voice, their freedom, or potential, or more. So where does that come from, that concern? I only say that because here you are, you're involved in a sport where there's a certain amount of selfishness that has to go into doing something like you do, meaning you really have to focus on your needs.
Right.
But at the same time, here's this guy who wants to coach others and help others and inspire others, and you have this concern about your fellow human beings.
Well, absolutely, and that's, it's not necessarily that's just the current political climate that I am not real thrilled with at the moment. But it's not necessarily current because I've seen it through my whole life.
Yes.
And I've seen it's always been kind of bubbling under the surface, but I see or hear comments, that such and such, maybe immigrants are here to ruin the country or something, or such and such a religion, they'll stereotype, and I hear that my entire life, and it's kind of exploding into a volcano right now. You have to be careful about how you approach these kind of subjects.
You have to be careful about
and just remain
positive.
positive.
It's not politicized. That it's just you as an American caring about your fellow countrymen.
Right, and keep it positive and to think, okay, these people who want to come to the country, when you think about it, they want to work, they want to make a better life for themselves.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, they've broken this law or they've broken that law. Well, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but they're here to, they're not here to hurt anybody. A lot of people that are targets of bigotry or racism or stereotypes, it's all false, because no large group of people is out to hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's disheartening to see so many people with fear of all these other people. I'm just trying to put out, there's nothing to fear in these people. These are good people. Whenever I feel like I'm spending too much time on myself, I think, okay, let me see what I can do to give back something, or to look at somebody else's life and see somebody else's point of view. Sometimes it's easy to get kind of trapped into your own self and your own world. And
particularly when you start getting into a sport at an elite level, and even at an older age, where you look at some people that get so obsessed with their own goals that they forget sometimes the reason that they got into it in the first place.
Right.
So, just going to wrap up here.
Okay.
Goals right now? It's something on your mind? Something you want to do?
My goal is to keep running, enjoy running for the rest of my life. I will be happy being a participant, enjoying enjoying the race, being with people. I also would like to create and direct more races, be a race director. I do am race director for a 100-mile race in New York City, but I would like to...
It's been going for about 6 years, I think?
We've had seven years so far, and it's been successful, and I have ideas, for other types of races that I like to create, because I want to, give a little bit back to the community, and give runners, another opportunity to experience the same joy that I've had experienced.
So this is customary for me to ask all my guests at the end of the interview, Phil, if you were going to take a road trip, meaning you weren't going to run, you were going to get in a car and you were going to drive across America, and you could take 3 people in the car.
Okay.
Who would you take with you from any time in history?
One person I would think I would take would be my great-great-grandfather, Michael McCarthy. He's the one who came to the U.S. from Ireland as a refugee from the famine. I would just like to show him what, I don't know. I've always had this idea of like traveling back in time and meeting him and like just telling him everything that's happening and whatever. So, but him
and learning about where he came from.
Exactly, and learning about his. Edward Payson Weston, I think I got the name right. He was actually like the original ultra runner, or pedestrian, they called it back in the day.
Wasn't he back in the 20s or 30s?
In the 1800s.
1800s.
He became famous because he made a bet that he would be able to walk from Boston to Washington in a certain time in order to see Lincoln's inauguration. And he also, I think, was the first person to walk across the U.S.
Okay.
So I think he would be
you got a good car full here. Okay, and one more person.
And this is silly, but Olivia Newton-John.
Olivia Newton-John?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
Explain
because
that to me.
She's been my favorite singer since I was 12. I had a huge crush on her when I was 12. I would just love to meet her and just go on a road trip. I think that would be fun.
I think that sounds like a crazy car full, but a lot of fun.
It'd be a lot of fun.
And a lot easier than running.
Yes. Oh, and that's, to this day, that's one of my dream vacations, just to get in the car and drive around the country.
I think you should do it.
Yeah.
It might not take you as long. You could enjoy. You can go at the speed limit.
Yes.
Yeah. And then finally, Phil, what would you do with your last day on Earth? If you knew that tomorrow was going to be your last day on Earth, what would you want to do with it?
Well, I would definitely want to be with friends or family, if possible. I would not be run. I might go for a short run, but I would just want to be around the people I care about. That's the important thing.
You're an awesome human being. Thank you so much.
All right.
The great Phil McCarthy. And if anybody wants to be trained by you, they go where?
They go to McCarthyRunningExperience.com.
Beautiful.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, God, thank you. You can watch this podcast online at philkeoghan.com. And let me know what's on your bucket list. You never know. You might be my next guest. Don't forget, ticket before you kick it.